Here you are.
Hi everyone, pleasure to be here. I'm really excited today to talk to you about some SEO insights and replicable tactics behind the growth of some of the biggest e-commerce, well, the fastest growing e-commerce companies in the US last year. And if you're not in e-commerce, don't worry, because SEO is fairly good to replicate in other industries as well. So we've tried to pick out some stories that apply to everyone. So I am Adele Keogh. I'm Director of Product and Content Marketing here at SimilarWeb. SimilarWeb is a digital marketing intelligence platform with a full stack SEO tool as of now. I've worked in content for 15 years and my biggest passion is working on content that drives organic growth because that's the best kind of growth. So I'm super excited to dig into some of the content and SEO stories we have today. And I am joined by Baruch.
Thank you, Adele. And I'm Baruch Toledano. I lead at SimilarWeb all the product and solutions that we build for performance marketers. As for myself, I've been in the industry of SEO with over 12 years of building products for performance marketers and SEO in particular. I have a strong background in e-commerce where I led Magento, which is the e-commerce platform in its early stage. So I also have a lot of passion for different kinds of e-commerce websites. And lastly, I love build things with affinity to large data set, which is what we are all about at SimilarWeb, and with all of its anomalies and all the various data models that make your day in making decisions more informed. So today, actually, we're going to focus on a study that we've done, what we publish every year called the Digital 100. Specifically, we're going to focus actually not on those just large e-commerce companies and what they've invested the strongest to make their presence strong, but actually we will look at the many places that disruptors are coming about. And we'll see examples by where creative marketing, cross-channel collaboration between different folks in the marketing team, disciplined execution, and actually really knowing your audience well, and of course, a little bit of technical SEO as well. So what do we have today? Our stories are going to take you to all corners, I would say, of the e-commerce spectrum. We have some really wild organic gains with Wild Grains. We're going to look at how an amazing brand has jumped into trends in the Korean beauty. We'll also show you some of the building of the best product pages probably that you have seen. And we'll also bring up how can your PR work with you and help you to speak the language of the SERP and not just speak the language of the dogs that some of you may own. So let's jump straight into the first case study about Wild Grains. The floor is yours, Adele.
Thanks, Baruch. So Wild Grain is a really great story of content-led SEO working together. So who are Wild Grain? They are a frozen carb delivery service. And in case any of you are hungry, please stay with me and go and order your frozen carbs after this presentation. But they're in the food and drinks category. So in Digital 100, our big rank of the fastest growing companies, they were third in this category overall last year. Now their website is, their traffic to their website is 33%, so a third organic traffic, which is very impressive. And last year, their organic growth was 600%. So how did they do it? So they did a lot of brand awareness. So their two core drivers were direct traffic and organic traffic. So they spent big on brand awareness rather than paid search, which is quite unusual for e-commerce. We generally see the paid search, which is our line in red here, being much higher. They've gone rather big on branded, which has had a really good impact on their SEO traffic, but there's more to the SEO story than that. In terms of branded, for the industry average of branded searches driving organic traffic in food and drink, that is around 35%. That's actually a really nice metric to look at as SEOs, is how much branded traffic you should be expecting within your organic mix. They're getting 57%, so it's high. and it's not just relying on their brand awareness. They've actually done some cool SEO work, which I'll talk to later. But I'm going to start first of all with how they're driving more traffic from their informational keywords. So what are they doing? They're carb loading their content with blog posts. So 75% of their top pages are blog posts, and they focus on uncompetitive long tail keywords. Now, this isn't new. I'm not coming and saying, wow, have you tried a blog strategy before? All of you know what blogs are, you know how to do them. But in D2C, in e-commerce, these are places where you can really stand out against big marketplaces. So your Amazons, your Walmarts, they don't do this kind of content. They lose out on this market. So this is a really smart way for D2C brands to really thrive if you do it properly, and Wildgrain are doing it properly. So here's a fun example to start with, which is a bit different. So when we do keyword research, we start with a seed word, which may be something like bread or pasta if you work in a carb company. So they're seeing here that people are searching for rice versus bread. They're searching for potato versus rice. There's plenty of different combinations of what people are searching for. Generally, with these 4 terms, that could equate to around, my maths isn't good, I'm a content person, but maybe around 20 different versus pages you could create. What Wildgrain have done is put all of that together because they recognize a user intent that they don't even know. So if I'm searching for rice versus pasta, if I see a SERP result which also tells me what's better, bread versus potatoes as well, I'm more likely to click on that one. And for your information, I believe potatoes are the best carb, but please put your opinions in the chat. And this works. So this page is ranking for 714 keywords, which is quite astonishing for a blog. Like I say, they're uncompetitive keywords and they're not high volume, but altogether this is leading to a really, really valuable page. And how are they doing this at scale? They're a small team, it's a small business. We focus today on smaller companies, SMBs, because we don't need to tell you how much Temu and Amazon drive their growth. They do it through a lot of paid spend. So these are small companies and they're doing it well. So they have scaled their content by templatizing it. So their images, they stick to 1 image per blog post. Now, you may often hear, I need videos, I need GIFs, or actually don't use GIFs, they're too cold, loads of different things in SEO. Wildgrain have just gone their own way, 1 standard image at the top of the blog, and it gets picked up in SERP features as well. Next, they're H2s, not really standard H2s either. They're pretty long. Hopefully you can see them on the screen here, and they're usually question related as well. And what they do with their general content afterwards, they answer that question directly in no more than 300 words. Word count, Google will tell you that word count isn't important at all. It's just if you answer the query. We feel that it maybe is a little bit more important than they let on. So for this category, we see that for blogs, a word count of around 800 to 1,000 is average, and this is exactly what Wildgrain are doing. And EEAT, it's most important for your money, your life queries. So is pasta, rice, your money, your life? We've got your money, your pasta here. Well, when you're talking about nutritional value of food, it starts veering into health. So what they've done is they've got 2 authors to author all of their blog content, and they both have PhDs in nutrition. And they also put a disclaimer on every single blog post to say, if you need medical assistance, go to a doctor. We are not your doctor. So they're a responsible publisher, and Google can see that. And they've got 120 blog posts, which becomes interesting when I show you the next slide. So SEO is a long game, especially publishing content and blog content at that. So you'll see in January 2023, they had 35 blog posts that were actually driving traffic. By February 2024, they've got 94. So that's really good, steady growth in line with how much content they produce. And this is why the long game is important. So to make content assets reliable, which is what you want from a blog, this is something that most teams don't do, but they should, is to set goals around the number of pages that reach a certain traffic target each month. So it's SimilarWeb, we're quite a big company. We have a set target of pages that reach over 1,000 as their threshold. And those become our reliable, sustainable pages that we know that we need to upkeep, we need to keep them going, and we need to refresh them every so often. Now, Wildgrain In 2023, in January, they had no pages getting even over 100 visits. It was slow growth, but it's come. So you look now, November, February, maybe one of their targets is to get 20 pages above that 100 mark and then keep growing from there. This way, if you measure content in this way, you avoid being overly reliant on just 1 or 2 pages, which only looking at traffic can give you. And if you get hit by an algorithm update or something happens to that page, you can lose all of that traffic overnight. So long-term sustainable growth, and make sure you put this as a KPI in your plans. And lastly, I mentioned before that they do something to actually gain more branded traffic. As they've done a lot of brand awareness work, searches for wild grain reviews have increased, which is normal. People want to know what the product's about, whether to trust it. It's around average 2,000 a month, but it's going up and up and up. So they've made a review page. Cool. You could just go and make a review page. It's not quite as simple as that. They actually, again, haven't followed extreme SEO best practice. There's no schema markup on this page, but what they have done is worked really well with their customer success team and got a lot of reviews, which has pushed them above Trustpilot and other independent review sites. Review searches overall tend to have a very high zero-click rate. So this means that someone goes to the SERP and they get the answer already without having to click through. So that leaves 28% of people ready to click. And so what does being number 1 in the SERP get you? Here it gets you 57% of that search traffic, which is very, very impressive because that's traffic that's ready to convert and they're now on your asset. So little SEO tip here is to make sure that you work with your branded content. So reviews I've just shown you, about us. Usually brand teams or corporate marketing teams don't get SEO involved in these pages, but are you talking about the right entities, the right keywords, the right topics on the About Us page? It's very important to be involved. Returns and cancellation pages. Cancellation pages, it's a negative. But if you own that page, you can convince people not to cancel. It's better to own your own narrative. Same with alternatives and competitors. So when you grow brand awareness, people will start looking for alternatives for your brand or you versus another brand. It's not only independent review sites that rank. We're seeing more and more D2C independent websites ranking for their own terms here. So it's not necessarily an open goal, but it's a goal that you should go for. So to sum up from Wild Grain, target low competition, long tail keywords, templatize your content so you can scale it easily and focus on things like EEAT, and branded SEO shouldn't be forgotten. You should be owning all of your search terms, yes, even the negative ones. Baruch, on to our next story.
This is great, guys. We have even more interesting stories coming up. This was amazing story of wild grains, and now we're shifting into Eloria, and it's all about entity SEO and how it actually meets the rising trend. So, for those of you who are not familiar with Eloria, they are basically a Korean perfume and a Korean beauty and cosmetics company. This is a trend that has been out there. It is standing here in the US as being one of the rising view into Korean beauty and how it can be adopted. And Eloria was targeting specifically this particular audience in the United States. In our study, they came as #1 in the beauty and personal care, with 37% of their traffic coming from organic. And we've seen a very large growth. Now, what's really impressive about this growth is that the growth actually happened only at the second half of the year, which is pretty impressive. And I'd like you also to pay attention that together with their organic growth, as you see here in the light blue, they also have seen a similar growth in their direct, which is somewhat interesting. As we see many times organization, it does take them time to get the brand awareness outside. So yes, they've had some operation before outside of their own direct website, but really they've picked it up from a direct to consumer perspective somewhere around the middle of 2023. Now, if you're going to look at SimilarWeb, you're going to find actually that the demand for that Korean perfume actually started earlier in the year. a lot earlier. And this has been somewhere around mid-2023 is when it really started to pick up, specifically around social platform like TikTok and the others. And Eloria was basically at the right place at the right time to basically capture that demand and understand what they need in order to get there. But they weren't sitting quietly. So how did they actually get into this top organic search? So if we're looking into their particular performance, what we see is that definitely they have been growing through their good brand. And this good brand, Eloria, is constantly ones that people are searching for. So branded term definitely have seen strong demand from the get-go, which is a lot of the result into what we've seen in the direct. And we know that when people are actually looking for branded term, they definitely have a strong intent and already a built-in affinity into your particular website. Now we went and we wanted to know, okay, so what's going on here? So when we started to look more carefully into what drives them, we always saw that terms like Korean fragrance, Korean perfume is actually driving them straight to be in the top results on the SERP, which is really surprising because I bet that if you were to look into popular perfume in the US, not always will you get the homepage. So I did the same thing for the American perfume in the US, was ranking #1 American perfumer. And the same thing for the French. And if you were to look, for example, for an Italian pizza, I'm sure Google will give you some calorie counts and explanations of how pizzas are made, and maybe a knowledge panel with it. So why is their homepage doing so great? So we said to ourselves, all right, let's take a look more carefully into their homepage and what's going on. Well, when you're looking into the sort of on-page elements on the page, you see, okay, Korean perfumery is in the title tag and maybe 3 words in the body text. So it's fairly minimal because they're living into the brand. It's Korean beauty. They want to bring you that experience as you land there. Also, if you go into the About Us page, they're using images with text. And now Google, of course, can read, but not necessarily a traditional SEO as you would have expected. And also, if Google is able to read that particular images, there isn't much that would relate them specifically to be the one that Google chooses to rank. So what's going on here? When we started also to analyze a bit about their particular profile, what we find is we find some interesting article referring to it, but none of the anchor text on those articles were actually referring to Korea. Only the brand itself was the one that actually drove that particular traffic. Okay, so we're still left with a riddle. What is going on? So we started to look more carefully into their product page. And what we found is we found some few elements that really sort of like stood out. When you dig around and you see some of these small entity mentions throughout. So here you can see, for example, they had it in the Korean ingredient. And also in every page, they had a bit of more information about the product description itself. All of this, despite them not actually targeting Korea, remember, they're trying to get into the US market. So what was going on earlier on? So what we found is we found a couple of things that sort of like when we're looking across the web, how actually the brand is describing sort of the Korean perfumery on Eloria. Even looking into the social description, we can see here on the left-hand side that they actually updated it to be on referring to Korea, right? In addition to that, all of the other players around that were writing about them, whether they are being on social profile, whether it is very prominent magazines like Allure or the New York Times, were actually mentioning the word Korean perfume and Korea. And so what's going on here is that Google basically reading these descriptions, understand and make the connection between the brand entity and Korea itself. For those of you who may be more familiar, Google released that patent probably around 2019 when they were talking about how they understand entity. So for Google to figure out the entire context, it isn't just what the context that they've provided, but they look throughout the web to understand these mentions about the website itself. And this actually started to show up in a variety of other articles that have existed. For example, in this listicles about Korean perfume brands. Google really understands that relationship and the context between the brand entity itself and Korea. And when you're seeing these entities and how they're finding themselves, so clearly, yes, social is important and dimensions are important, but also a little bit in the About Us page, all these elements are actually helping Aloria to become that synonym to Korean perfume brand. So what can we sort of take out of this? So first of all, creating a page on your website that describes your entity clearly is helping them. The second thing is that they're using those descriptions around the web and not just on the website, as we saw on some of these social media pages. And yes, they are active in the social, but it's also part of the element of how Google makes this connection. And then lastly, of course, is that the more places that your brand is mentioned on the third-party site that, of course, have quality are actually making that connection even stronger. Now, we were like, okay, so I'm sure this is not the only Korean perfume. So we look at some of these close competitors, and they're not even mentioning the word necessarily. And specifically, they are targeting consumers in Korea. And so subsequently, they're not necessarily ranking to the same core term as Aloria does, which are those Korean perfume. Google basically doesn't associate these brands with Korea in its entity base. So what we want you to take out of this is that building your business entity at the end of the day requires you to look at all elements that reflect your business, including your social profile out there. And Google does look around to really build those connections and relationship. And then the second thing is that really looking to identify these emerging trends so that when you are ready to capture them, you are right there in front of you. And they don't always start just on your website. They can start in other places, but then your website is supplementing the entire picture that Google puts together in those relationships. On to our next story about BirdBuddy.
Thanks, Baruch. So from lovely smells through to capturing photos of birds, I'm going to dive straight into this BirdBuddy story, which is another cool content one. So they are a smart tech company selling bird boxes with cameras in, so you can take photos of any birds that are visiting your garden. They are in the home and garden category and came 5th overall in our Digital 100. About a 5th of their website traffic is organic, and they doubled their organic traffic this year. So it's not the same level of growth as some of the stories that we've got, but they're doing some really, really cool things and their growth is very sustainable. So let's dive in. So they have a kind of traditional growth model for e-commerce. It's led by paid spend and it's led by seasonality. So in spring, you see the buy it yourself category rising. So this product line is seasonal. So when more birds start appearing, people want to buy this product for themselves who are interested in bird watching. And then you have the buy it for others peak, which is bigger. That's around gifting season, November, December. So this is where we see the big peaks. And interestingly, year over year, organic, paid and direct have grown in both seasons. And that's impressive considering a bit of wider context. So Walmart, Target and Best Buy this Black Friday, well, Black Friday in 2023, actually saw double-digit year-on-year decline in terms of people visiting their websites. Amazon, not pictured here, they grew by about 0.5%, but overall demand was generally up around 0.5%, which means that most growth was experienced by D2C companies and independent companies. So the opportunities are out there. So what's driving their growth? Well, similar to Aloria, And sorry for all the bird puns on here. Like I told you, I'm a big content fan, so I can't help myself with some puns, but their demand is up. So demand analysis is actually a really cool thing to look at in SEO, and it's something that isn't done so much. So we tend to look at monthly search volume, and sometimes we look at how search volume deviates along with seasonality when it goes up and down. But year-on-year trends are really, really important to catch if a trend is rising or if a trend is potentially petering out. So grouping together keywords associated for BirdBuddy and their own brand as well, they were growing around 65% year-on-year. So some of the key terms here were bird feeder camera grew 25%, smart bird feeder grew 100%, and their own branded term grew in demand by about 56%. So their brand is strong and it's driving growth, but it's those bigger terms around their product that are driving even more growth. So bird feeder camera, smart bird feeder, and they're capturing all of those on a page that I can frankly say is peacocking. So this one product page they have is getting 150 keywords. It's ranking for 150 keywords. It's getting 9% of the overall traffic share of the entire website. And interestingly for SEO, it's ranking for a few different search intents. So generally we're told, make a page which only focuses on the one search intent so you don't confuse a user. Keep one search intent for one page type. That really isn't the case we're finding now, especially for technology companies in the e-commerce space. So anything smart tech and AI related, people really want informational and educational content within the product page itself. They want reassurance that how the technology works, that it's not going to infiltrate their own systems and steal their data. There's a lot more that needs to be done to drive to the top of the SERPs with product pages now. So we put a link in the deck actually in the last slide for you to go and visit the page yourself. You can see the picture I like the most was this picture of this lovely bird here, but that's not it. What they've got on there is they've got really great educational info on there about how the technology works and how it will actually fit into your bird watching life and in your garden, how it connects with your phone, and it's all very, very reassuring stuff and educational stuff. They also have FAQs that cover everything, so you don't need to leave the page to go and view the FAQ page about things that people usually would, deliveries, returns policies. That's all featured on this one page. And this page also has reviews, and actually you can see the list here, it has everything. So it's very similar to a top seller page on Amazon. So Amazon, if you pay to have a top seller account on Amazon, you get all of these extra bits that you can write on your page to convince people to buy your product. Now, all of these extra elements are actually very good for today's SEO in e-commerce. So if you want a bit of inspiration about things that you can potentially add to your product pages, take inspiration from Amazon or take inspiration from a really great D2C site like this as well. And in terms of how they own the SERP, this is just an anecdotal story, but if we take that one keyword, smart bird feeder, hopefully you can see it here, but they're capturing 38% of all organic clicks for that. So that shows you again what ranking in #1 spot does. Interestingly, they also sell on marketplaces. So they're on Amazon, which is ranking #4, and they feature in the New York Times and the USA Today articles about bird feeders. So they're owning 4 out of 10 of those SERP features, which is very, very cool. Next up, they also do informational content to drive more people to their site. So we looked at this because we saw brand and demand for product was up 65%, but their growth was 100%. So where are they getting that extra percentage from? Where are they driving it? It's with their informational and what I would call entertaining content as well. So we reviewed December, which was their biggest traffic driving month. Then on the 12th day of Christmas, Google gave to them 13 blog posts with over 100 organic visits a month. And impressively, the one with the most visits was a seasonal blog, which you don't usually expect. Blogs don't have to be evergreen. So it's a very fun page on the birds featured in the 12 days of Christmas. This got featured in 4 different SERP features and drove twice as much traffic as the next blog. And when you're a product that is great for gifting, these kind of blogs really can result in sales. And lastly, It's not just blog standard content that you can be creating. So they've productized their content. So their product takes photos of birds. They've turned that into a meme generator. I've chosen my favorite here. Does this perch make my butt look big, for instance, with the bird? But this is a really nice idea considering SGE coming. I've already seen a few questions in the chat. We anticipate SGE is going to take a slice of informational searches. I think that's the general way it's going. What it can't take is things that you do that are individual to you and your brand, interactive things. So things like meme generators, you don't have to do a bird meme generator, but think about what your product does and how you could create some interactive content. This drives 4% of BirdBuddy's traffic to their website, and it also drives a lot of return visits and a lot of social visits as well. So it's really, really great sustainable content. So the key takeaways for BirdBuddy are, again, if the demand is there, make sure you meet it with exceptional product pages and keep adding elements in, especially the educational ones. You can seasonalize your blog content as well to drive more clicks in the right time for you, and productize your content, protect yourself against SGE, give yourself something that Google can't give other people, or the robots that give other people. So you can have sustainable growth that's all yours. Keep the traffic to yourself. Baruch, our last story now.
Amazing. And I see that there's a lot of questions, so we'll try our best to answer all the questions after the last story. So this is about greenies. And for those of you probably who are not familiar with the greenies, greenies is basically all about creating a healthy treats for your loved one, your dogs. And for us, they came #1 in the pet care industry, which is very competitive. So it's really hard to stand out. They drive 28% of their traffic coming from organic traffic. And really, they've grown tremendously in 2023. So at a high level, when we're looking into their overall traffic profile, we can see actually that this is a very well-run machine, investing originally in paid media, in paid search. And then, of course, as they pick up in their organic, they're reducing their spend over there. And also the brand is starting to pick up and really doing a good job around getting their brand known. We're going to focus in a bit of what happened in August specifically, but really this organization is really doing a very good job in running their marketing team. When you're looking into their link profile and the publications that are currently pointing at them, it is very impressive. It's very impressive in terms of the types of domains that are actually linking to them. But beyond that, it's really about the stories around how this is actually coming to life. Now, we ask ourselves, okay, so what are they doing really different? So I don't think that they're begging different writers in different publications to help them point them at different links. And I'm sure this is probably not something that will work for them if they will continue to get that type of attention. So really, it's all about doing those things naturally. And what do I mean by about naturally in the case of Greenies? So Greenies was very bright about looking into their creative PR. What they figured is that there is essentially a canine dental crisis. And in August 2023, they basically team up with the American fashion designer, Christian Siriano, to basically raise that entire awareness with a full campaign behind it. Basically, what they did is that the designer created a matching outfit between the woman and the dog to really talk about how much this crisis is impacting dog owners and dogs themselves. And lo and behold, this has definitely worked well for them and started to drive lots of different interests into this particular crisis. And so this unique PR getting the attention into their healthy treats that are there to come and help them definitely got the attention into Greenies. So as you can see here, people are starting to associate Greenies with various treats for the dental crisis that they actually have seen. And this awareness through their PR actually did a lot more of what they could have done actually by themselves by getting the attention through a very important designer. And really, all these publications started to come out both from a fashion industry as well as in the dog area, in the dog treating area, came out with all these different articles and drove around August timeframe and drove lots of different links from these high quality domains. And this is exactly what we saw in those particular spikes when actually they've seen it. Now, the question is, can they actually maintain it? Well, here what we see is that the direct traffic is actually growing. And so far, it's shown some really good results for them by actually establishing the brand and its association. So what we can say to you is that SEO due diligence on influencers is probably an important part to your strategy. Finding the right influencer, teaming up with your PR team is super important to go and actually create this awareness. And then the second thing is not just going about creating those links, but actually working with a good anchor text that in those target publications that will actually make a difference into the awareness of your brand. Now, they didn't stop there. And really, what's interesting about their approach is that they took a much more human approach towards their dog. So as you know, dog owners, in many ways, and I can attest to it myself as one who is a parent, in many ways, we are referring to our loved ones in the things that they need to be taken care of. So the people are looking for anti-inflammatory or probiotics for your dogs or beef pill pockets. This is actually played really nice for them by bringing all these different humanized context into what the dog's issues may be and driving them towards these pages that are really bringing the feelings that their audience really wanted to get and really taking care of the problems that the beautiful dogs in the way that they want. This actually have been quite impressive for them. And when we actually look just at the words pill pockets for dogs, they are basically controlling the entire SERP, whether it's themselves actually ranking, whether they are reselling on Amazon or on Walmart, on Chewy, they're there, exactly there to get the attention. And you can see even in the SERP, we see greenies standing out with their particular product. And that's definitely only to help them throughout this effort. So what are the key takeaways? Definitely team up with your PR, but don't just team up with your PR, but come up with creative ways to actually help you win. And because you cannot just make it through just these old ways of link building. The second thing is humanizing their product names. I think it's such an important part of the strategy in really thinking about the owners of the dog and the issues that may appear with the dog, but the way people are actually searching. And then lastly, just from as I showed in the beginning, really this marketing team is operating fantastic by looking into their ad budget effectively and putting their budget in the right places that drives the most traffic. And when needed, they amplify it both on paid, of course, as we saw through PR. Adele?
Yeah, thanks, Baruch. Again, an amazing story. And we were saying in the chat that SEOs and PRs should be really close and they should be best friends. They can help each other out. They're just often disciplines and personalities that don't mix together as much. So that's the end of our stories for today. We found all of the data using SimilarWeb, which is where we work. So we strongly believe that data can really unlock growth opportunities and insights for companies to really drive new ideas and more organic traffic. So we're aware that the SERPs are changing at the moment. They're about to change again, as I've seen some of the questions coming in quite significantly, but also search habits change as well. People change, the way they search change. So we've developed a tool that changes alongside people. We've got data that updates every day, and we report on the SERP as well as any keywords you want to rank. So we've got the most powerful and fresh data on the planet. We allow you to unpick strategies at scale or even industries, get industry information and benchmarks. I think that's super underutilized in SEO. And we've also just added backlinks and site audit. So that's a very quick plug for SimilarWeb. And now I think we can get on to the questions. which we've had quite a lot. So I did also notice that we had, I think, pasta won as the most favorite carb, and there was a lot of bird puns I missed out on that presentation, as a lot appeared in the chat, and we've got a lot of Greenies fans as well. So Baruch, let's start with the question, shall we?
Yes.
So Andrea asks, what advice do you have for B2B companies?
So definitely I can take that. So B2B companies are definitely out there, and they need to create definitely a lot of content that addresses the life cycle of their own product. So our advice is very similar in the way of doing your proper keyword research, really building your authority behind topics, and making sure actually that you leverage your own product, if you can, as part of your marketing strategy. This is a fantastic way to actually your audience to feel your product and know what it is. Clearly, you have to look at the entire funnel and address the different content that you have throughout that funnel and connect those elements in the B2B. There are, of course, different tactics. We are a B2B software company, so we definitely provide lots of content out there, but we're also leveraging our product in many ways for people to experience the data and to experience the top questions they have in mind.
Yeah, and I would just add to that that whatever your product is, it will probably give you some data on your audience. So sharing that data with your audience via white papers, partnerships to mix your data sources with another company as well. That's really, really important. So yeah, but like I said at the beginning of the presentation, the two content forms are not completely dissimilar. So next we have, if your product page has FAQs, but you also have an FAQ page separately, is that not duplicate content, or does rewording them and restyling them, is that enough for the rank to be okay?
So generally speaking, it depends on how many questions you want to answer in a given product page, right? Like if you feel like there's a lot more and depth into the answer behind particular question, I would definitely think about separating the two. I think in the case that we have demonstrated here is to give enough answer to the top common questions that people have, especially if this is a new product or a new ways that you know that people have lots of different questions behind it. We find it to be actually helpful. If you believe that you need additional information about the product itself, you may carry it somewhere else because it may actually make the product, the page itself of the product being confused. So for example, if you really need to put more information about how to assemble the product properly and how to actually mount the product, so we would say probably keep those two. We would still recommend to connect it. So if people have questions and they want to follow up with additional questions, it's definitely the place to put it. We would not recommend to do two FAQ pages that answer the same question all the time because it just doesn't help you to have duplicate content. With that said, you have to think of your user journey and what intent they currently have. And we thought that this was a great example of how multiple intent exist in those products because it's a new product. And it was important for the merchandisers to bring that to life. Adele, add anything?
Absolutely not. You nailed it. Next question, which is on top of everyone's mind, is around AI response to it being at the top of the SERP, and does it decrease the click rate at all? And this is quite an interesting one because we saw the example of review content having a 72% zero click rate. So in lots of ways, the SERP is already evolving to try and answer as many questions as possible. And we can actually see that really clearly through SEO software and seeing which queries result in zero clicks. And then when people do click through, where are they likely to click through to? But Baruch, in terms of AI coming, where do you see this as having the biggest impact?
I think the verdict is out there. We're going to see I know that there's a lot in the SEO industry that is talked about the impact of AI, and it's definitely may shift the way that people are actually searching. With that being said, We believe that Google actually will take a very responsible approach into make sure that it actually answers the questions that people have in mind and structure a process that is really helpful yet correct to the users when they're putting all these queries. I think all of us should prepare for it. I think it is an important part of the journey and it is evolving. Content is important, but as you can see, other things are important too. And we just demonstrated it for the Aloria and the entity SEO. Google is going to pick a lot of information about your brand, about your product, about the different entity from different places. And so your marketing team can really needs to work in concert to make sure you deliver that information to users. Keep in mind that at the end of the day, if you have expertise, Google will pick them up, and they are definitely important, and you should bring them out there.
Antoine, have we got time to answer one more?
Yes, sure. One more. We
Great.
can do that.
This is another one that's top of mind. Kimberly asked this with relation to the beauty category, but I think overall. So how does social, for instance, TikTok and Instagram, impact branded organic traffic? And how do we incorporate referral traffic from social into tracking and analysis? So in terms of how we do it at SimilarWeb, we have a separate stream for social traffic. So we categorize that differently and we report on that. So you would have seen with Aloria and actually Wildgrain that their social traffic was really high. And that was in line with their branded traffic being really high as well. So we see the two correlating really well. The interesting thing that we're looking into at the moment is how people use TikTok as a search engine. You may have seen some facts flying around. I think it's like 50% of Gen Z now use TikTok for restaurant recommendations instead of Google. Actually, at SimilarWeb, we've got access to how people search on TikTok. So we're analyzing that. Apologies for the noise. Some building work going on. We're analysing that at the moment, and actually we'll be talking about it at Brighton SEO if anyone's there as well. But Baruch, anything else?
Yeah, I think we as an SEO have to start evolving and thinking about our content in many ways and more holistically. Social platforms are becoming a combination of many intents, and people are searching there, and they're not just like browsing through answers. And I think the more we embrace this and look at the entire view. The good news is, as you saw, actually, Google is picking a lot of this stuff up. And so Google is actually very interested in the things that are happening in social and giving them the right podium. And we saw that as an example of how they looked into Aloria and looking in how this actual trend has started to pick up. And hey, catch the consumer wherever they are. And if they are on Google or if they are on TikTok, it is another place for you to interact with the consumer.
Thank you, Adel. Thank you, Baruch. Do you want to add anything else?
I was going to say, we're sorry we didn't get to all the questions, but I think they're sent to us afterwards. So we'll work hard to send answers out. And thank you, everyone.
Maybe you will be available on LinkedIn or
exactly.
Somewhere else. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So you can ask them your question. So thank you very much, Adel and Baruch for this conference. Thanks to all participants for taking part. We hope you have enjoyed this conference and that you have learned some new tactics to make your SEO and content strategy more effective. And so we are going to take a 10-minute break. And we will be back for the next conference presented by Sarah Presh. The conference will be Cognitive Bias, how to use psychological theories to improve your SEO. And so you will receive an email from Livestorm in a few minutes to access it. If you have any problems joining the conference, you can contact us via support on the SEO Square website. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.